The Walk.
God is trying to show a generation that he loves them. And it's so sad because they don't believe him and they doubt him. And they ask for signs and wonders, and he gives it. And he's showing them, like, I have a reason to be faithful. And they'll, like, enjoy it. And then 5 minutes later, they forget. And as I read it, I say to myself, how often am I doing that in my life when I'm praying to get through my trial and I get through it and then I'm like, oh, okay. And then I forget how easily we forget. And for me, it's heartbreaking seeing God continue to put his love out there for us and then, forget his goodness and forget his faithfulness. And I think what Moses was doing, so he's the prophet who saw God face to face, right? And then the next one who was closer to that was Jesus. He was the Son of God. He was in constant communion with the Father. And I think that that's so beautiful because Moses, his job was to teach these new people how to embrace a life of freedom. Because when your identity is in God and you remember you are a son and daughter, you are not a slave. You are out of slavery. And that, to embrace that, you have to have daily conversion. Every day we should be converting. Every day we should wake up and remember, we wake up as pagans and we have to choose to follow God every day again. And Moses had to teach a whole generation, everything that was in Egypt is an old way of life. And anything with the Lord is always forward. And I feel like it was hard for them because that's all that they knew. They knew a life of slavery. And I often reflect and I say to myself, how can I remember God's faithfulness? How can I remember his goodness and his promises? Because, when Moses is intervening on behalf of the generation and God's like, I'm going to wipe them out. and Moses is on his knees and he's like, no, do this for your future generations to show that you are faithful to your promises. That showed God's heart breaking. And we see God's heart break throughout the Bible of how his children forget him, how easily they can just go on. And when I parallel it to Jesus, I think it's so beautiful how Jesus shows how to love God perfectly.